Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I'm going to give you some hints and tips on how you can draw your own elephant eye study or elephant skin. So for this particular drawing here, I have actually drawn the elephant eye. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because we've covered eyes so many times on this channel. I'm going to leave a playlist link in the description below so you can check out some other eye studies that I've created so you can kind of get to grips with the methods and techniques for that bit. So I'm mainly talking about the elephant skin, so those wrinkles and folds, and some of the colour choices that I've put into those particular areas of the elephant as well. This is a really different texture to what a lot of people are used to. A lot of people when they're drawing wildlife are used to feathers or fur, so when it comes to wrinkly skin like this, it can seem a little bit daunting. Some people, including myself actually, put this kind of texture off because it's outside the comfort zone, and as artists it's a really good idea to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So working on something like this is a really good idea, like every now and then, to just help yourself grow as an artist. And it's also a really good idea when you're working with a new texture like skin of an elephant or a rhino or anything like that, or even like a scale on a snake or something. It's a really good idea to work on a smaller scale. So the piece that I've got here is 3 by 3 inches. If you're wondering what I've used Faber-Castell polychromos pencils, and I'm using Fabriano Artistico hot press watercolor paper, and I've used a really small snippet of something that I am used to doing, such as the eye, and then I'm incorporating that new texture. And working on a small scale like this will just help you to get to grips with the kind of techniques and everything you kind of need to do, and then you can apply it to a larger scale. Working on something in detail, like really zoomed in like this as well, is just going to help you pick out those details and to really start to identify yourself with this particular texture. So I've talked briefly about what we're going to be doing and like how you should work and all of that. So let's get into the application of the colour. As you can see, I've got the eye down. I've just used some small circular motions to get in the iris, blended with the white, and then just really slowly built up my layers. I'm always using a light pressure when I go in with my coloured pencils. I don't use a solvent or anything like that. I like to blend with the coloured pencils. If you want to use a solvent, then you can do, to get a really nice smooth blended area, but I would still recommend that you would use those small circular motions to get that kind of really shiny, smooth looking surface that you find in eyes. When it comes to doing the outer lids here, elephants have these really elongated inner eye corners, like really long triangles, and I just added that in first of all using a dark sepia pencil, just using a light pressure, and then I've just gone in and added in some more of the darker areas and left the kind of lighter areas free, and just really gently layered up to get a darker colour around that particular area. You can kind of see the difference in texture between the eye and the kind of eyelid skin area that I've created there. The eyelid skin is kind of like a little bit more rough looking, and you can see I've kind of really blended through the eye, so you get that difference in texture there. Now on the top of this particular elephant eye study, I'm going to leave the reference in the link as a link in the description for you guys so you can see exactly what I was working from. It's from Pixabay. This elephant had some really wild eyelashes and everything, and it might look a little bit daunting to kind of add that down, but what I've done is use an embossing tool to pick out some of the whiter eyelashes, so where the eyelashes are catching the light, and then what I'm doing is adding the skin underneath those eyelashes. So I'm leaving that kind of matted look of the eyelashes until the very end, and I'm adding the skin underneath, and it's quite difficult to see the particular tones of the skin underneath that kind of really solid block of eyelashes and hairs and everything. So I'm just kind of looking at the surrounding areas and seeing what's going on as to what the kind of tones and everything could be underneath that. So what I have done is put down a base layer of some warm grey 1. I've then gone in with a very light layer of some Beaster, and then I'm going over with some darker colours, some nougat, some walnut brown, and all of that fun stuff. I am also blocking in the kind of crevices, so the wrinkles or folds, whatever you want to call them, or the cracks in the elephant skin, I've gone in first of all using a nougat pencil, just really lightly etching them in, and then I'm going in and using a walnut brown pencil and pushing quite hard with the pressure on this pencil to really get some nice dark areas. Then around those really dark crevices, I am taking the nougat and the Beaster and I'm just gently shading around them. I'm also using some walnut brown as well to get around those areas. And I've also added, to really darken up those dark crevices, some blue. So I've actually used a blue violet. These were some tones that were present in kind of the waterline around the eye, and I've also added it through the eye as well. So I've added it into the shadows or the crevices of my elephant eye here to kind of tie the colour scheme together, and it works really well because it darkens it incredibly well. As you can see, it gets some really nice dark areas, and all I'm doing is putting down that walnut brown and then putting some of that blue violet over the top, and then if I need to darken any further, which in a lot of cases here I don't need to, then I go through with some dark sepia. But a lot of that you're seeing, those dark areas, are just with the walnut brown pencil. In this particular area, I have just mapped out with the walnut brown very lightly the folds, just because my line drawing underneath was kind of disappearing. Then I've gone in with the warm grey 1, and the way in which I use the pencil, so the direction and everything that I use the pencil there, because it's not fur, it doesn't have any particular direction. I'm just using a very large kind of oval, almost like circular motion with the pencil, but I'm making larger ovals. So I'm not necessarily shading back and forth or using very small circles. It's somewhere in between the two, and I'm just adding a very fine layer of that all over. And the best way to work with this particular type of texture, so you don't get daunted, is to work in little kind of fold section at a time. So as you can see, what I've done on the top left there, just worked section by section, working from the eye and up towards the top left corner, and I'm just adding down all of the colours that are going into the skin. So as I said, I've got that initial base of the warm grey 1, then I'm going in with some Beaster, just using light pressure, and then I'm going in with that pencil again and getting a little bit darker. So where I can see some shadows and everything, I'm just increasing the pressure on that pencil slightly, then going into using some nougat and then some terracotta if there's a little bit more of an orange tone to the skin, and then finally going in with some walnut brown to just kind of tie in all of those crevices and create a little bit more shadow and a little bit more depth. So it's actually a really simple process once you get the hang of it. Like, once you get used to adding in your crevice lines first, and then adding in your base layer, and then working in your lights to darks like you would usually for any other type of colored pencil drawing if you're not using something like a pastel mat. It's really simple when you're just going in little bits by little bits. It takes a lot of the kind of complicatedness of this. Like, when you're looking at an image and you're seeing all of these wrinkles and all of these little crevices and everything, and you're thinking, wow, I'm going to get lost in this reference photo, it's better to just work little section by little section rather than working over the whole thing, because it is very easy to kind of lose where you should be putting these crevices and these folds and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is a little bit easier, or a lot easier, to work in small stages like that. So you can see, once again, I'm kind of putting down those lines and all the cracks in the skin with the walnut brown, and then going in with the warm grey 1, then going in with my mid-tone, which in this case is the Beaster, and making those kind of large open oval circular motions with the pencil, not necessarily shading back and forth or using small circles, but making some very large open ovals to get the texture of the skin in there. You'll notice as well that I'm not necessarily adding too many layers in the lighter parts, and that's because the skin is really light, and the texture of my particular paper here works really well for this texture of the skin. So I'm just kind of letting the paper texture do a lot of the work for me here. And where we do have some of those lighter cracks in the skin, I'm just going in with a lighter brown pencil or a very light pressure on my walnut brown pencil to just add those in, and they're just kind of coming off like you imagine like a branch of a tree or something. I'm just kind of branching off of some of those little crevices and everything and creating a little bit more texture. Kind of, if you look at like when you make a fist with your hand and you see all of the little lines coming off in slightly different angles, just kind of mimicking that kind of texture on the elephant here. And yeah, just repeat that process all over the skin until I come to the finish of the skin area, and then I go in and add all of those eyelashes. So what I do for those is basically just take a really sharp dark sepia pencil, and I make sure that I use one continuous line for each particular hair or eyelash and just follow the route that it's taking. I'm not necessarily paying too much attention to the reference photo for when I'm adding these in, because it's very difficult to do that. You can go through and map out what each one individually in exactly the same place, but I tend to think you get a much more natural looking picture or piece when you just kind of let your pencil do what it wants and just kind of follow it naturally, how it's going to kind of float across the paper and that kind of thing. Now, if you do want to follow along with this in real time, there is a full 2.5 video of this available on my Patreon and on my Club Puffin website. I'm going to leave the links to both of those in the description if you want to check that out, because this is a tricky texture, and as I said, it's a 2.5 hour tutorial. I hold your hand all the way through it and we work on this at quite a slow pace, so a lot slower than what you're seeing here. It's in real time over on those two channels, so I'm going to leave that in the description for you. Whatever one you sign up to as well, you're going to get a whole host of different tutorials. So there's fur, there's more wildlife, there's small eye studies. So whether you're a beginner or you're a little bit more advanced, there's going to be something for you over there. So I'm going to leave the links in the description, as I said, to both of those in case you want to check them out. But you don't have to. You can just watch this and try and do your own elephant eye with this. That's fine as well. But yeah, I am pretty much done with this tutorial. I really hope that you have enjoyed it and that you have learnt something from it, and that any kind of skin or anything that you tackle in future is a little bit more easier using some of these tips. If you do happen to follow this particular tutorial, make sure you tag me over on Instagram. Use the hashtag AmieHowardArt. I love to see all of your creations over there, and also there's a link in the description if you want to join my free Facebook group where we share all of our art and do some other fun stuff as well. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next week. Bye.